I'm going to tell you right now how and why Tennessee beats Georgia. And when did I make this pick, Caleb?
Well, you officially came out with it this morning, but you have had a feeling on this for about a week, I would say.
Yes, since Monday. And I don't gamble, but when I have these strong feelings, I'm usually pretty right. I'm about 80%. And I just feel like this is the time that Tennessee is due, that this is a monumental win, and it will compare to the Alabama win in 2022. Some would say that it would be bigger than the Alabama win in 2022. We'll discuss that. 4 Downs now, and it's brought to you by Banks & Jones. We're represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
4 Downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
Downs. A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
It's not about me, but if I may say so, check out the Vol Report, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning with Cooper Mays, as we recorded that yesterday. It's one of the best, and it has to do with the interview subject. And I gleaned that there was confidence there. Now, I'm not saying that Cooper came out and said either on or off the record that we're going to go down and beat the hell out of Georgia. No, he didn't tell me that. I think a lot of people think that I ask Cooper a lot of things.
Why is that your accent for so many people? We're going to go down and beat the hell out of it. That is not how Cooper May sounds.
I don't know. It's just basically Ed Orgeron for everybody, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah. It's like it's a more polished Ed Orgeron.
Yes.
Because honestly, Ed Orgeron sounds crazier than even that. But,
Very true. And I do want to take a quick second. One of my best friends had a heart issue, and my stepdad had a pacemaker put in. So there's been a lot of people out there praying, and if you'd have continued to do so, I would greatly appreciate that. Click the thumbs up button if you'll pray for Dave, because I've been a little bit through the ringer this week, and I did ask my dad. I said, "Hey, do you mind if you put off major heart issues outside of football season, and in particular Georgia week when Tennessee's quarterback is hurt?" And he said he'll work on that in the future. So maybe I won't be sidetracked as much as I have been during the most important week of the year. But here we go. 4 reasons why Tennessee beats Georgia. And I go to the one, the only Cooper Mays to tell us what to do. Oh, Cooper, I didn't hear you. Say it again.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
All right, Coop, first down.
Coop here. First down.
All right, let's get to the news about Nico Iamaleava. Here's what I've been told via various sources. He has passed initial concussion protocol, a second concussion protocol. There will be another one likely given before the Georgia game. So is it 100% that he will play? Probably not, but it's about 99.9%. And I have been told that he has practiced throughout the week just as normal. So I think there's a lot of concern about concussions, and I think that that's warranted. But I do feel like with the Will Smith movie and all that, it probably went a little too far. So he's not going to play if he still has concussion-like symptoms, which he doesn't as of this moment that you're watching this live, weekdays at 10 a.m. But, Caleb, every indication I've gotten is that Nico Iamaleava will play. Now, could he take a hit on the shoulder? Could he take a hit that knocks him out of the game? Yes, theoretically. However, reason number 1, Coop, what down is that?
Coop here. First down.
I think even with Gaston Moore, Tennessee has an advantage at quarterback. And here's why I say that. Now, I say this with a caveat. Carson Beck has thrown a staggering 12 interceptions this season after just 4 last year, 9 in his last 4 games. Also had a loose handle and a fumble last week as well. Now, I say that, it's worth noting that all of Beck's turnovers have been on the road. Okay, so he may go to Athens and may play mistake-free, but I don't believe that. I believe, and we'll get to this a little bit later, I believe without a Brock Bowers and the McConkey receiver that they had last year, who are doing great things in the NFL, I believe he's being asked to do more than would be ideal in a Kirby Smart team. They don't ask their quarterback theoretically to do as much as, say, Josh Heupel does. So because of that, I give quarterback play, and this is with 95% Nico playing, 5% Gaston Moore playing. I give quarterback play the advantage to Tennessee. And I think that not only Nico is going to play, but I think he's going to play very well. Caleb, your response to down number one?
I actually mostly agree with you. I think the quarterback advantage is clearly Tennessee's. And, you bring up a decent point, which is that, yes, it is true. Carson Beck has had all of his turnovers on the road. But I think some of that's just timing. Carson Beck has just gotten progressively worse over the last few weeks. And they've just happened to be on the road more. I mean, they were away from home for Florida. That was a neutral site game. And then they were at Ole Miss. And Dave, honestly, that Florida game, I want to point out, because of the status of the programs right now, and we're going to talk to Pat Dooley about this later, it was kind of a home game for Georgia, wasn't it? I mean, it's a neutral site game, but there were way more Georgia fans at that game.
No, absolutely. And it still befuddles me why they even agreed. Do you know why they had that game in Jacksonville?
Because it's the greatest cocktail party ever obviously.
Well, no, it's because a lot of their richest boosters are in Southeast Georgia. So they want to be able to go to a game that's more convenient. That's stupid. If you want your team to be at its best, you want half of those games at Sanford Stadium. Sorry.
So those rich boosters can't afford to just go to Athens?
Well, they do, but I guess they want one short road trip.
Is this why when Alabama played their marquee games in Birmingham for so many years, all the business people lived in Birmingham and didn't want to have to go to Tuscaloosa for the game?
I can't speak specifically to that one, but it sure sounds like it. What down's next, Coop?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
Oh, that's third down.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
There you go. Second down, Coop. What are we doing? Second down is this, and that is, this sounds weird, injuries. I think they favor the Vols, again, because I think Nico Iamaleava is going to play. And then we hear that Trevor Etienne, the star tailback for the University of Georgia, is out. The Bulldogs also have two other running backs that are questionable. I mentioned they're not very good at the skill positions. Now, again, to be transparent, receiver Dante Thornton is listed as questionable. But Caleb, honestly, he's probably been Tennessee's best receiver, but they haven't had an elite receiver throughout the season. Perhaps that's because of other issues on offense. Perhaps that's just because we overrated them, but they have depth there. So as long as no one else goes down and now Squirrel White is healthy, I think the skill positions favor the Vols. Big time, actually.
Yes, and it's funny you bring up Trevor Etienne because he torched Tennessee last year while playing for Florida.
Mm-hmm.
He got 172 yards on the ground. Tennessee could not stop him. It's a big deal that he's out in this game. And, I mean, honestly, the duel might have been Dylan Sampson versus Trevor Etienne when we all thought at the beginning of the year it'd be Nico Iamaleava versus Carson Beck. But it's now neither because Trevor Etienne is hurt and Iamaleava and Carson Beck are not yet right now the stars we thought they would be.
All right, let's get to third down. Get your down straight, Coop.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
D travels. Guys, we could sit there and argue and debate that the 2022 team is more fun to watch, but this team is better equipped to go win a big-time road game against a quality opponent in a raucous environment. The Tennessee's defense still hasn't given up 20 points in a game this season, ranks second in the SEC just behind Texas in yards allowed at 272 yards per game. This is just a team that will be in the game, I joked, tongue-in-cheek, if Navy Schuler has to play quarterback. But in all honesty, if he did, I don't think the Vols would get beat by more than 10. I think Tennessee's in the game no matter what happens because of this defense.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that's actually one thing that sets it apart from the last 2 years playing Georgia. Because, 2 years ago, 27-13, that was not a 27-13 game. We've discussed that at length. Tennessee struggled 2 years ago because their receivers couldn't get separation from Georgia's defensive backs, and that's what their entire offense was predicated on. So they lost that game the minute kickoff happened. The minute the rain started falling, they lost that game, honestly. And last year, they just had so many other issues. This year, you're right. If Georgia is able to, if Tennessee can't get the separation in the passing game, which we don't think they will because it's not like they haven't done much of it this year, Tennessee's defense is going to give Georgia hell. I mean, I'm seeing, Dave, I'd be shocked if Tennessee didn't have 3 sacks in this game at a minimum.
You're a gambler. Okay, I'm going to get to sacks, actually. You're a gambling guy. Let me ask you this question. Can you get a bet on whether or not, I mean, you can bet on anything, right? You can bet on the presidential election with this new app that they have. So you can bet on anything. By the way, Trump won. And you can bet on anything, but could you bet theoretically on the Vols give up less than 23.5 points? And I'm curious, if so, where would you put that number?
Yeah, I could bet on that. I would bet on that. I would set it at 19.
Is that an option out there? I'm curious.
Well, let's see. Tennessee, I can actually do the math in my head right now. Georgia spread over under. I'm not pulling up FanDuel on my phone. See, the over under is set at 48.5 points, but the spread is Georgia minus 10.5. So we're talking Georgia winning this game, according to the spread, 29-19, 29-18. I mean, 30-19, either 29 or 30-19. Basically.
Okay, so for funsies, if I put the over under at 23.5 points that Georgia scores, which would you take?
I take the under. And honestly, based on how the spread is setting it, Vegas is saying that Georgia is going to score close to 30 points, which is mind-boggling to me.
Yep. Okay, I agree. Now, by the way, that number was like 9 points higher on a Sunday, so you could have gotten great undervalue earlier in the year. All right, my final reason why Tennessee beats the University of Georgia in an upset and an epic win by the Vols in 30 seconds. So the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? Banks & Jones, T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com.
SEC Center Cooper Mays here, 4th down.
Before we go forth, I do want to add Tennessee on that defense. They average 2.3 sacks per game. If they pressure Carson Beck, because if you get 2 sacks, you probably got like, 6, 8 pressures in addition. If you get home to that, you're going to have pressures. He'll turn the ball over 2 or 3 times, and that's your ball game. So lastly, run it up. The Vols debacle in Athens in 2022 was partly due to the inability to communicate. I think former Vol Eric Ainge got the Dogs stirred up a little bit. I don't think he said anything this week. And Sanford Stadium used to not be a loud venue. It is now a loud venue. But I think it's much more difficult to communicate when you're in the passing game than it is just to say, hey, we're going to run the football and take this crowd out of the game. Again, this goes back to how this team is better equipped to beat a quality team on the road. And part of that, you can call it boring. You can say it's not as good as back in 2022. But the simple fact is, this team, if they need to, they can shorten the game. I don't think they'll necessarily need to, but if the defense is able to turn Carson Beck over, produce perhaps an easy score at any point in the game, the Vols can win another way. They couldn't do that in 2022. They had to outscore Georgia, and at the end of the day, the Vols communication didn't go well. They don't want to admit that because it's almost like you're saying, oh, we weren't prepared, and that's the last thing a coach ever wants to say. But that's a fact. They had problems communicating, and Georgia was just better. I mean, Georgia's defensive backs were elite. Georgia is not elite defensively, They aren't bad, but they're just 6th in the SEC in rushing defense, allowing 111 yards per game. This isn't an elite defense by Georgia's standards, Caleb. They're about middle of the pack. So that and Tennessee's ability to run the football is why I've got Tennessee beating Georgia 23-20. Caleb, what do you think of my breakdown? Anything I left out that you would have put in there?
I think what's shocking is you're basically saying Tennessee's winning this game because they have the edge in the trenches and, on the line of scrimmage. Who thought that with Tennessee versus Georgia at the beginning of the year at all? Who
would have thought that going back to 2021? I think that Tennessee has the edge in the trenches. I think it's very close in overall talent. Now, that sounds incredibly crazy. The thing that I didn't throw in there, because it's kind of hard to put a finger on, is it feels like to me that the wheels could be coming off. You have Trevor Etienne not playing. I don't want to get in too deep into that, but that's kind of a surprise. Is he about done? And then you have the whole celebrating with the Ole Miss fan and Kirby Smart calling that player an idiot. Well, I can tell you that didn't play well in the locker room. And that's why he came out and apologized the next day. So it just feels like this Georgia team, and I didn't include that in my 4 reasons why Tennessee would win, Caleb, but it feels like the wheels could be coming off for Georgia. Now, on the flip side, maybe they circle the wagons and play a great game against the Vols, and that could happen. But boy, it's again a 2-loss Georgia team, so their history would not indicate as much. They should have rallied against Ole Miss if they had a championship medal to them.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's a very, very, very big concern and issue. And look, I won't just talk about the way Kirby Smart's lost the team on that. I mean, Dave, Kirby Smart may have lost the team in the way that if Nick Saban called a player an idiot, the team would respond and respect him, right? They would be like, okay, we need to get this fixed.
Well, let me stop you right there. He wouldn't have.
That's a good point.
Kirby Smart lost his cool. That was poor.
That's very true. Okay, so Nick Saban, put it this way. If Nick Saban would have called the player out and made him feel bad, and then the team would have responded and respected Nick Saban. Is that fair to say? He wouldn't have called him an idiot, but he would have said something to him or gotten on to him. Put it that way. However he got on to him, the team would have responded and respected it, and that kid would have realized his wrongness. Is that fair to say?
I think he would have said, I'm not going to address anything like that. It's rat poison. We're going to move on. And
but he would have talked to the player directly.
He would have talked to him directly, but he may not even needed to. I just think that team was so led by its players that and listen, we're not going to get into this, but after the kick 6, there's a clip where AJ McCarron talks about one of the players for Alabama did number 2 in the kicker's shoe.
Defecated in his shoe.
Yes. And filled it all the way up. So the guy puts on his sock, sticks it in his shoe. Nick Saban was irate. He said that he was going to have he was going to
test everybody's fecal matter.
Everybody's tested. So I think that goes to tell you that Kirby Smart, although he's compared to Nick Saban a lot, they're not the same.
Well, yeah, and that's what I guess I kind of wanted to address where went off the rails a little bit. But the reason I'm bringing that up, Dave, is because I think this is a conglomerate of things of one, a player feeling like he can do that because the players heading into that game don't respect Kirby Smart because Kirby Smart has completely let the culture of discipline run amok. Now, I know what Mike Griffiths said to us earlier in the week. He said it's not like Urban Meyer in Florida. And he's right. Kirby Smart's not out here saying go murder people and harass your girlfriends and try to blind players like Urban Meyer was. Okay, Urban Meyer didn't tell them to do that. He just didn't care if they did. But Kirby Smart I think he's got a little bit of Philip Fulmer going on right now that you talk about from the early 2000s where Fulmer lost the team and he just couldn't. There was no way to get the respect back after that.
I really do too. I think it's more that than he bounces back and is suddenly a multi-championship coach again. And I thought Travis hit it pretty good in a couple of different posts. He said the mystique is gone. I think it is. And Travis goes on to say it's the beginning of the end for Georgia's program and Smart.